Hello and welcome to this meeting of Inverclyde Council Social Work and Social Care Scrutiny panel. This meeting is being held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation and to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and the comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. With that statement ready, I'll hand over to Diane for apologies, substitutions and declarations of interest.
We have apologies from Provost Mackenzie and Councillor Hellier with Councillor Flockety substitutes. We will now move to a roll call for asking for declarations of interest. And the following members please indicate if they're present at the meeting either in person or remotely. Councillor Armstrong. Present in the chamber. Councillor Brennan.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brooks.
Present remotely.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present remotely.
Councillor Flockety.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present remotely.
Councillor Jackson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCabe.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
I don't see any in the room. I don't think I see anybody with their hands up online either. Okay, thanks very much. I'm just then going to move straight on to item number 2. That's the Revenue and Capital Budget Report. And we've got Sam White taking us through that today. So Sam, I'll pass over to yourself. You're very welcome at the panel today. Thanks very much for attending.
Thank you, convener. Sorry, just to say so, we're reporting at period 11 a £27,000 overspend, which is an improvement of 84,000 on the position we reported at period 9, and that the movement is mainly due to a reduction in client commitment spend, projected spend as adult services, offset by an increase in the corresponding spend in children and families. We're reporting capital spend of £755,000 on the LD hub against the revised estimate of 1.16 million, and our projected spend on council delegated reserves is 1.585 million, which would leave a projected carry forward of 4.39 million at the year end. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Sam. I'll open up for questions and comments. Okay. No. Okay, thanks very much then for that, Sam. Everybody's read the papers very, very well, very thoroughly, I think. Thanks for that. But just know that I'll ask the panel to note the projected current year revenue outturn, the capital position and the current reserves position.
Agreed.
Thanks very much. So we are on to agenda item number 3, and that's some updates on recent inspections of the children's residential houses, Cross Hill and Kylemore. And I think I'm going to hand over to Margaret to take us through them and give us some extra detail. Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you, convener. So this report informs Scrutiny panel of 2 care inspectorate unannounced inspections of 2 of our local children's houses, Cross Hill, and their inspection was January 2025, and Kylemore, and that inspection was in February 2025. In terms of the key areas being evaluated by the care inspectors, it's very much about how we support children and young people's rights and well-being, and how children and young people feel safe, loved and get the most out of life. The actual inspection reports are submitted with your papers in Appendix 1 and Appendix 2. In terms of Cross Hill's grade, along the 6-point scale from unsatisfactory to excellent, Cross Hill was awarded a grade of good, and Kyle Moore was awarded a grade of very good. In terms of some of the key messages from the inspectors, and it is important to note that overall both inspections were very positive. In terms of thinking about the Cross Hill, some of the key findings at 3.10, young people experience therapeutic and stable care, trusting and nurturing relationships, young people's physical and mental health were given a priority, and there was strong advocacy in children's rights lens for the young people in the house, and their views were listened to and considered alongside their key worker and their social worker. In terms of Kyle Moore, again, very positive. Young people experienced therapeutic and stable care. Relationships were a strength. They were warm, trusting and nurturing. There were high levels of respect for the young people from everyone looking after them. And the services created a further safe space in terms of a well-being room. In terms of all inspection activity, as with the service itself, there's always areas that we can develop and improve. And for Cross Hill, there was one noted area of improvement in relation to notification of significant events to care inspectorates. And it wasn't necessarily that significant events weren't being notified, it was about really just tightening up the timescales, the system and process around that. So we've taken that away as an improvement, and you will see that in the inspection and the action plan. Taking that as a way, as an improvement, as I say, and work is already developed to just really tighten up when we notify the care inspector of any incidents with young people, and that can be things like accident, having to go to A&E, and people maybe going missing, or young people having to be contained and safely held for their safety and the security of others. So they're the key areas that we must notify the care inspectorate of across all our houses for all young people. There was no areas of improvement for Kyle Moore House, but overall I'm very clear that all our registered services will continue to look for ways of improving. We are aiming to provide the best possible care for all our young people, and we are aiming for serious about continuous improvement, and we are aiming for excellence in our care. The two inspections that I just spoke about complete the cycle of inspection activity for 24-25 for all three of our children's houses. And just to remind members, there was an inspection of the view, and that was graded as very good last year. So that is the overall outcome of our registered services inspections for all three children's houses. Detailed reports are there, the inspection improvement plan is there, and the improvement journey will continue. We're happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Margaret. Thanks for that. Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, obviously I welcome the reports and the gradings, and obviously congratulate the staff in terms of the good work we're doing in both homes, and as you say, there's always room for improvement, and I welcome that commitment. I was a bit curious, and this is just probably nosiness, but when I read the two reports, I don't get the perspective they're exactly inspecting from the same perspective. There seems to be different language used in the reports and different areas, I suppose, looked at within the reports, and it's probably summarising the key messages. So I'm curious as to whether it was the same inspection team or different inspection teams, and I suppose can different inspection teams, I suppose, influence the nature of the inspection rather than simply be a checklist and they're all doing the same inspection, and you get a very comparable report, or whether actually depending who's doing the inspection, they may well focus in different areas, because I get a sense that they're not strictly the same type of, exactly the same type of report or the same perspective.
Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you, convener. So my understanding is it was the same inspection team that inspected those houses. The care inspectorate followed the same methodology in terms of the methods as to how they approach inspection, and that's detailed in the reports. However, I think your point is very well made, and that each house and each service should be unique. There should be very common themes around high quality of care for the young people in the houses, but it should, I suppose, the inspection activity should highlight the strengths of each particular house and the areas of improvement for each house. So there should be nuances and slight differences there across the staff team, whilst nevertheless, I'm very clear as one of the key leaders in children's social work services that we are looking for consistency of very high quality care across all our houses for all our children, so their experiences are as positive and meaningful as possible. But we would want inspectors to pick up the uniqueness and some of the nuances across some of the care teams. Hopefully answers your question.
Yeah, and I suppose that perhaps the age of the young people as well influence the nature of what they focus on, presumably.
Yeah. Again, another really insightful point, because absolutely the children and young people in the house have unique and individual needs across the spectrum. So the care team around the children have to support and scaffold those needs. And again, that can be different for each young person.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much for that. And I think Jonathan's going to come in with some additional points as well on that. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, convener. And three, Councillor McKibben, I think just to reinforce what Margaret has said, I think whenever we look at any of our registered services, there is that baseline, that standard that we want, and we want consistency. But as you rightly point out, the makeup of each house is different, the age profile of children is different, and actually whenever you look in the reports about the sources of information where inspectors talk to family members and external stakeholders as well, all of that narrative goes in to help them articulate the findings of their inspection. But I think it's really good, and it's your comments really appreciated, that we've got three very strong inspection reports. As you say, there's always room for improvement, but I think the team's inspection action plan is brief in the sense that it reflects the strengths there. Obviously, there's some process areas that are taken forward around continuing care policies, and as Margaret said, those notifications. So that will be a process improvement, really, I suppose, over the next few while, and we'll continue to monitor that.
Thanks so much for that, those questions and comments, Councillor McCabe, and for your responses. So, Councillor, I've got another question or comment coming shortly from Councillor Daisley. I'll go to Councillor Daisley first. Thanks, James.
Thanks, convener. Just a comment and observation on the report around Kylemore specifically. Kylemore's in my ward, and ever since I came onto the panel, I've noticed, and I've looked at it with interest, and I've noticed a couple of things. First of all, the key thing for me seems to be there is a consistency of really strong and positive inspections, which is really, really fantastic. And to achieve that, I just wanted to make my feelings clear on that. I'm very grateful for the staff and anyone who works in there, and also the young people as well for their involvement in it. It's a fantastic achievement. But one of the other things that I noticed was another type of consistency, and the consistency I've noticed seems to be around a real focus on the positive relationships between the young people and the staff. And this has come up time and again, and when it comes to Kylemore. And when it comes to the comment around that, the staff take a nurturing approach which fosters an environment where young people feel valued and understood. And to me, reading that, on a human level, is that not just what everybody wants? And especially young people who are going through that experience of care and through the system of care and into adult life, to be made to feel valued and understood is just a really wonderful thing. So I just wanted to just make my feelings clear on that. and say well done to everyone.
Thanks for that, Councillor Daisley. Margaret?
Again, thank you, Convener, and thank you for those comments, and certainly ask them back to the staff, the service manager for residential care, Emma Bisland, is in this panel today as well, online like yourself, so I'm sure she'd been delighted to hear your comments, as am I, and we'll make sure that we feed back to the staff team your very positive and insightful comments, much appreciated.
Thanks, Margaret. Councillor Armstrong?
Thanks, Convener. Yes, thanks, Margaret, very much for the report. I just wanted to add I just want to commend the young people and the staff for their contributions, and their efforts are very much appreciated across all the houses, and very well done. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Okay, so I'll round up with another thanks. So actually just add thanks, as Councillor Daisley says, obviously he's pointing out that Kilmore's in his ward, but we're all, as elected members around here, we're all corporate parents, so these are all our young people, no matter what the geography is. So obviously this is something that's really important, and for these young people, inspectors have gone into their homes. So I think when we're seeing these words like respect, nurture, save, we've got two really positive reports here, which are on top of a report that we had before with the view that was also positive. So just big thanks to all the young people, the staff, the parents, and everyone else that was spoken to. And I think it sounds like we're all in agreement around the panel. So that was great. Thanks a lot, Margaret and Jonathan. So we'll just note that report and move on to item number 4, which is the supported living service parent inspection update, I think.
Yep.
And we've got Joyce here with us today, so thanks for coming along to talk to us today, Joyce.
Thanks, Convener, no problem. As you say, this is an update report. It's for our adult supported living services, and it's an update on the last inspection. The inspection last year was in May 2024, when the service was graded at a 3, so there was some improvements to be made. There was also positive things there. That's still an acceptable grade, but there was improvements to be made. But the care inspector revisited for another unannounced visit in February 2025 this year, and they've now regraded the service to an increase up to a 4. So in that timescale, the service has made the improvements that were required. The service includes 2 supported living units alongside an outreach service for people who are living in the community and individual tenancies. And the main focus of it was really around the importance of encouraging independence and encouraging people to take responsibility and enabling people to have more choices around day-to-day living. And that very much fits with our philosophy at the moment and what we're trying to improve. So, you know, it did fit very well with our kind of ethos at the moment, trying to encourage that kind of philosophy. So, but we were very pleased, and the staff should be pleased, because the work they've put in has worked out at an increase in the grade to a 4. I'll leave it at that, Chairman, please.
Thanks very much, Joyce. I'll just open up for questions and comments. I know that the action plan was really well received at the panel previously, that it was very much welcomed by panel members. It was very thorough, and that's been good news. As you say, it was the grade was you know, good before, but this is good to see the increase. I'll go Councillor McCabe and then Councillor Armstrong. Thanks, Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, I very much welcome the progress that's been made since the last inspection and the improvement actions that have been completed, and obviously the improved grade of 4. So well done to everybody in terms of making that progress. But obviously, as we discussed earlier on, we are about continuous improvement. And I suppose we're going to get another unannounced inspection of this service at some point in the future. So how is the service working towards, I suppose, improving on the new grade of 4 and moving in the direction of 5, and ultimately, obviously, we aspire to be a 6. It's probably a big challenge, but how are you sort of going to build on this inspection and try and keep moving in that direction?
Well, as you say, you're absolutely right. Thank you for your comments, but you're absolutely right, it is continuous improvement, and the action plan is very detailed. I didn't go into it in any detail because there's a lot in there, but it is all in there. It is all continuing on that road. So there's the inspections are an interesting process. There's kind of procedural stuff. There's stuff about, you know, what the forms, the information we have to record, etc. So there's that side of it. But I think for me, the most important side of it, just as we were reflecting with the children's services, is the relationship and valuing people, as other members have said. And I think the biggest area is this idea of enabling people to take as much control in their life as they possibly can. And people in services, we haven't tried to make them dependent, but I think at times people in services can naturally become a wee bit over dependent on the service, and staff can sometimes feed into that a wee bit because they care about them and they want them to be safe and they want them to be happy and they want to do everything for them. So I think it is the main area is to start really to continue developing a more risk-averse way of working with people, and to take appropriate risks for people that they want to take, where they're able to take, and be out doing things that they want to do rather than being cared for adult. I think that would be the main thing that we would want to continue on. There's lots of smaller things, like I say, about procedural things, etc. Medication is mentioned quite significantly, which is another important area, and that's always something that we need to continue to develop also. But we have a very robust medication policy locally that we've worked on jointly with pharmacy and with our nursing colleagues. So medication is an area that we're quite confident on. But I would say that overall, improving in people's independence and ability just to be part of a valued part of the community. I think that word valued is really an important one for everybody, for us all, as we said earlier.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. Councillor Armstrong.
Thanks, Convener. Very briefly, I just wanted to commend the staff for implementing the improvements, and thank you very much for the update report.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, it's just to say, with independent living, COVID removed a lot of the independence from the people who were supporting. So the question is, it must have been really difficult to get that independence back again, because from travelling out to social activity to every aspect of their life was then suddenly curtailed, and a lot of the good work that was done trying to support people into the communities was suddenly put on hold for a couple of years. So I suppose it's just to congratulate you just to get to this level, but it must have been a really difficult thing post-COVID to get people back out of the where they were after all that time. So, it's really just that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jackson. Joyce.
Thanks for that. You're absolutely correct. And what has actually happened is it's not just that people have lost the routine of going out and attending things. So it takes time for people to build up the ability and the confidence to do that, but they've actually become quite fearful about going out because of the whole experience of COVID. So that's been quite a hurdle to overcome. And sometimes we forget that, so it's a very valid point. Sometimes we forget that, we sort of move on. But for some people, they saw it obviously every day in the news, they realised the impact on their lives and that they couldn't go out. So a lot of people have become quite fearful of going out, and that's been one of the biggest hurdles for us to overcome, really. But there's no doubt there's been progress made, so that's good. Thank you for that.
Thanks very much. I don't think I see any more online, and nothing else in the room. So we've just to know the recent inspection and know all the improvement actions completed within the agreed timescale. So big thanks to everybody who's been involved in that, and thanks to yourself for reporting on that today, Joyce. Okay. So we're on to agenda item number 5, which is fostering, adoption and continuing care update improvement activity. We'll pass over to Margaret for that again. Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you, Convener. So this report advises the Scrutiny panel of ongoing improvement activity that's taken place since the introduction of adoption, fostering and adult continuing care services back in May 2024. The report collectively refers to these services as family-based care. The King's Brexit's quality framework in family-based care has a number of key questions around how we support children and young people's well-being, our leadership, and how well our care and support is planned. The inspection reports and service improvement action plans were scrutinised and discussed at this panel on the 29th of October 2024, members will recall. Now, again, it's a theme for today, noting that improvement is a continuous activity. It was agreed that an update of the improvement planning would be provided at this panel today. And this report is an update of the previous update of the improvement journey. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Now, members will recall that in terms of family-based care, in terms of the foster and adoption side of the service, the grade was adequate, and in terms of the adult and continuing care side of the service, the grade was good. There's a very detailed improvement action plan attached an appendix that I won't go through likewise the detail of all of that activity, but you can see that that's very clearly diagrammed and there's significant progress across the 3 family-based care services. And those plans in terms of the improvement journey are very much tracked and monitored by the leadership and management team, and we believe those plans are smart, so they're really looking at specific, measurable, achievable, realistic targets around that. The ongoing monitoring and tracking and support of that improvement work has underneath it in 4.3 I set out some core principles that summarise what we're trying to achieve here in terms of scaffolding the care and support and safeguarding of children in our care, scaffolding the support of carers who look after the children in our care, and of course the well-being of our workforce. And that is beautifully captured in many respects by the promise, which underpins a lot of our work, all of our work as a lens. When the promise articulates, we need to hold the hands of those who hold the hands of the child. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. So if we go to 4.5, 4.6, there's an overview of that improvement action plan. There's a detailed overview of the improvement journey. I won't go through it all, but we have improved systems and processes. We have improved the system around core tasks required to support foster carers and pre-adoptive carers around things like our statutory checks, our reflective supervision, our unplanned visits, our planned visits, how placements our care arrangement ends, and how that feeds into some of the regulatory processes around family-based care in terms of foster care reviews and planned endings and all of that. We've had a big focus on really refreshing the learning and development framework for foster carers to scaffold and support them because they're looking after some of our most vulnerable children, but also the workforce in terms of those social workers that are supporting the foster carers. And a lot of work around adoption support plans, safer caring plans, and there's been a real momentum and focus from the leadership team in terms of tracking longer term planning for children who are in our care where it's not safe for them to return home, and we need to secure them and we need to make sure they have legal and permanent stability through their care arrangements. Looked at really trying to build the connection between the family teams and the family-based care team, because the 2 parts of the system must work very closely together. We did note through inspection activity that a very, very small number of foster carers did not feel valued, so we had a lot of work to do there, and we'll continue to listen and be part of the focus groups, the one-to-one supervision and support of our carers, because we absolutely recognise that they're one of our most important assets in terms of nurturing and providing safe care for some of our most vulnerable children. And in terms of our priority on workforce recruitment and retention of social workers, that again goes across the whole service, but of course in a family-based care, we were focusing on retaining and recruiting practitioners so that children and young people and carers experience stability of relationships that we've spoke about today, and just how important that is to build those trusting relationships, as you've seen in a residential care environment. The 4.16 highlights a considerable area where there's been a lot of effort, focus from the leadership management team and the team around the recruitment of foster carers. We know that's a national challenge, and we know that impacts on us quite significantly locally. So we have been doing a lot of work there to really enhance our recruitment offer and make sure, as I say, the best form of recruitment is the retention of your existing carers. So the package of support around those existing carers is critical, and there's a lot of research done around your existing foster carers can often be, absolute assets in terms of recruiting new carers through their experiences, their word of mouth, and their lived experience. So 4.17 in terms of helping with that and some of the recruitment challenges, that really highlights in reply to Council's commitment to support us strategically with that, by releasing funding that will enable us to increase the fees for foster carers so that can help us retain our existing foster carers and potentially recruit new foster carers. Although I do see in that report, whilst that's very important and that's really positive, the financial motivations tend not to be the reasons why people foster. They tend to be about wanting to nurture and care for children, but nevertheless it is important that we scaffold the day-to-day needs of the carer and the child through supporting with those fees. So, in conclusion, the report shines a light on key activities evidencing active improvement. We have met the requirements, we have met the recommendations, we are taking it much further in terms of the breadth and depth of this improvement plan. It will be a continuous activity with a very honest assessment as to where we are in that improvement journey. And we will continue as we aim again for excellence in family-based care, much in the same way that we do for residential care. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Margaret. Councillor Armstrong.
Thanks very much, and thanks very much for the report. I have a question about the main report and then a couple of issues in the action plan, improvement plan. 4.15, you said that we're prioritising every care experienced child having the support of their social worker, and rightly linking that with recruitment and retention. And I just wonder, well, really, how's that going? Do we have more vacancies than we used to have, or fewer vacancies? And I'm quite happy to take this offline if you don't have the detail. But I think a bit of a comment about how that's going. I really appreciate that. Well, I'll just stop there and come back to the other questions.
Well, that's up to Jonathan. And Margaret, would you like to answer that or make a comment about that first? Is that okay? Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Although I'm probably judging your memories to be as bad as mine, so apologies. You can probably hold all those questions in your head at one time. Jonathan.
Thank you very much. And through the convener, it certainly is, as we've talked about in this forum, over the last few while, recruitment, as we have said in her report, is a national challenge for social work. And in reply, we have particularly found more turnover in children and family social work than adult services. But I'm really pleased that a really concerted campaign across social work vacancies locally has been really positively received. And we have talked before about how we are nurturing our existing paraprofessionals through Grow Our Own and Master's qualifying students, but even in terms of that more generic recruitment for children and families posts, within the last 8 weeks, we've had really good response and actually a good standard and a good calibre of applicants. So we are really hopeful, not to put any particular figures on it, but percentage-wise, we are confident that we will see a significant number of staff joining us, so that you can see that we're reducing.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you. On to the individual items. I was a bit confused on page 10 that this is about this tracker. I have to say that I got very confused by the original plan, which was in the papers, but having found the supplementary papers. Page 10, about a tracker being developed. I mean, I wonder what tracker has been developed. And I suppose more of the question is why, because I don't understand why Swift isn't throwing, isn't throwing this up as a matter of course. I don't really see why, something else had to be developed, but maybe just explain that and very quickly. And I think you've kind of alluded to this on page, sort of obscure, but page 11, about the strategy to increase the number of foster carers in Inverclyde, and do we have any new foster carers? Are we having success with that? So those are the two questions I have from the actual plan. Thank you.
Thank you. So the tracker, well, first of all, I would say I wish our IT system was as sophisticated, but unfortunately we're not quite there yet. The tracker is really in response to feedback from the care inspector and something we know is a very helpful tool. That in terms of the work of family-based care services, it sits under quite significant regulations and guidance about timescales, frequencies, triggers for following core and formal processes. So that really is just to make sure that we have a very simple system in place to make sure safer caring plans, which are developed with all carers, that should be reviewed, that should be updated because things in their life change. Things in children's lives changes, the level of need and risk may change, and it's just making sure that as a service, we'd already been doing it, but we're really keeping on top of it. We have a system, we're tracking it, and we're making sure we're fulfilling the regulatory guidance in that area. In terms of the recruitment of foster carers in particular, that is still a challenge, and I certainly don't have data at this point in time that tells me that we've had a significant increase in foster carers becoming approved at this point in time, but that is the lens and the focus of our strategy, because our offer will now hopefully become much more robust, because we will be able to have a very clear offer around fees and continuing to build our offer around support for carers. And we're looking at how, when inquiries come into our system, how we can really respond to that in a really enhanced way. So there's no delay, and we because even when you're responding in a very timely way, enhanced way, it's a very small number of carers that go from initial inquiry through to final approval to become foster carers. It is a big process, rightly so. It's very rigorous. There's a lot of statutory requirements, regulation and guidance and processes that need to be followed on that journey, and we just need to make sure it's really tight and there's no slippage. And even when you're doing that, you're still struggling. So I'm not going to pretend it is a challenge, but it's really important to us so we can keep children and families in local Inverclyde area.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks a lot, Margaret. Councillor Clough-Firty.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. An awful lot what I was going to say, you actually touched on right at the end of your answering the question there, because of course we do recognise, we had the briefing with Jonathan, we do recognise the path we were on within Inverclyde. We do recognise we're really talking about a small number of people who are fosters. Use the word hen's teeth. They are so valuable to us. So we do recognise that, and Francesca touched on it earlier on about us being corporate parents. We look at the family of Inverclyde. We want our children to stay within Inverclyde, and one of the ways to do that is to try and make sure that the stuff we've been talking about today is at the highest quality and is available to them.
So I do recognise that any us as a council can do to try and support that. It's within our grasp to make sure we do that. And I think that's across the board. We've always said that. And I think that's very important. But I do recognise the challenges you've got. I do recognise you just touched on about the burdens upon it. And obviously from us, we want to try and ensure that it's the least amount of, obviously we know the amount of scrutiny is going to be there, but what you don't want to do is turn people off for no real reason. And we do realise the pressure's not just from yourselves, but it could come from other places as well. So it's a case of trying to alleviate that, to make sure they do know that, in the words you do, that we as a council, as a HSCP, are holding the hands of our foster carers as well. I think that is very important. And we do recognise what a fantastic job we're doing from them, but we do recognise as corporate parents how we want to keep our children within Inverclyde as well.
Thanks, Councillor. So, yeah, thanks.
Just to thank you for your comments and thank you for your support and your insights.
Thanks very much. I think, as you're saying, Councillor Cofferty, I think the message there from our panel, I hope, would be very much that we do value absolutely our foster carers, that they're very much valued by us here as elected members. And I think it's maybe fair to say that the focus on the recruitment is very much, there's a lot more still to come from yourselves, you know, there's lots been happening, but lots more, because I know there's a huge amount of active improvement work. You've had a real focus and scrutiny on this area. I think you've supported us and a range of other groups in really developing our understanding, and especially in terms of continuing care and the discussions about that, and about foster care and foster carers here in Inverclyde. So I think, you know, it really is a big chunk of work. So there's lots there to recognise. I'll just pass over to Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, very much welcome the progress that's been made in terms of the action plan. I think every action is green other than the recruitment strategy, and obviously you've highlighted the challenges, and I suppose that's just trying to be as innovative as you possibly can, but recognising there's a national issue. I was just going to ask, in terms of another inspection, what sort of timescale would you anticipate we might be inspected again?
Thanks, to yourself, Convener. As a regulated service, the care inspectors have been really clear that they intend to inspect pretty much on an annual basis or just over. Now, given the proximity within which our inspection took place and the timescales for some of the requirements to be completed by September, we do have ongoing communication with care inspectors, so we understand that the next inspection is likely to be later this year. But I think from my point of view in my discussions with the inspector, it's not just about being able to evidence some of those changes that we make, but it's also how we can be evaluated on the impact of them and the sustainability of them. So having that bit of extra time this year will give the service that opportunity to demonstrate that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, everyone. I don't think I see any more questions. So apologies, Councillor Jackson. I think that light keeps popping on at the last minute. Councillor Jackson.
It's a question, but it's maybe not one that could be answered today. As Johnson said, a lot of the families hope more in the families to foster children to feel motivated to look after these kids and for love of what they want to do. But you know, you did mention the practicalities of it, and that's been addressed by the council with the extra money they've put in to help support the foster carers. But on this issue of practicalities, there's also the practicality that a lot of people who do want to foster, who are very nurturing and want to open their doors, they don't have the right size of accommodation, and housing is very much an issue in Inverclyde. Now, I don't know if it's a question you can answer here, but is it something you've come across? Is it a barrier to more people open their doors to foster?
Thanks, Councillor Jackson. Margaret.
And only Jonathan are able to answer what I would say. So that's part of the very, very early discussions you would have at the early inquiry stage. And it is a requirement that you're quite right, Councillor Jackson, you need to have a spare room. However, I would like to think, and you've raised again an interesting insight for me, that if we are getting inquiries from very committed candidates who really have a very strong motivation to care for and support children, then we would be looking to explore what the options are there and how could we assist and how could we link in with our colleagues in housing. Forgive me, I'm still feeling relatively new. I don't know if there's been any sort of cross-partnership policy working in that area, but you've certainly sparked something there in terms of potentially away and exploring further. But I'm going to, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I fully appreciate it's maybe
Yeah,
not
it's a very
something
good
to
point.
answer today,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Yeah.
it's certainly, I'm willing to wait to see if he's want to come back.
No,
I
thank you.
apologise for putting you under.
Not at all, no, it's actually a great area and Jonathan might be able to expand a wee bit more than what I can.
I suppose just in my time, and like Councillor Jackson, I've not come across accommodation being a barrier for a particular foster care, but I have had experience of it elsewhere where I suppose really in summer that we don't want a physical barrier like the size of somebody's home to be a barrier to fostering, where that's an assessment that we want to take forward. So I think just as Councillor Brendan's talked about corporate parents, we know that housing providers are also corporate parents, so I think some of those relationships give us an opportunity in our communities and never open that conversation up. So certainly we would be keen, I think, as part of that strategy to really look at that. And I suppose it goes back to the point in Margaret's report that where we're talking about recruiting foster carers, it's not just you can have the motivation, you can have the absolute commitment to the children in Inverclyde, but it is, as you say, those practical supports. And it's not just about fees, it can be about accommodation, it can be about people's employment, so whatever it is that may be an issue or a question that we could really be working to for potential applicants and housing the pool of those areas would be keen to do some work on. Absolutely.
Johnson.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Jackson, for bringing that. Obviously, we know that there have been really some successful partnerships with registered social landlords that we've seen, like the Homes from Home project or the Acorn project, where we've seen some of that partnership working really well for different groups. So that's really good to hear that that's something that you'd be able to take away and look at also. I hope I've not missed any other Lace for lights. Okay, and I don't think I've missed any comments or questions online. So we're just to note the active improvement activity being undertaken here by the Family Based Care Service. We thank everyone very much for all that work and all those supports and explanations for us and working through that. So thanks very much. And we're moving into private session now, agenda item number 6. So just wait a second.